Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome to Stop Motion Spookies. And for the first stop motion spooky film we'll be watching for this October, we're going to be taking a look at the Tim Burton classic, The Nightmare Before Christmas. So, let's get to my history with this movie. Would you believe I hadn't actually seen this movie in full for a few years? While I was made aware of this movie when I was like a little kid, I admit I never really had gotten a need to want to watch it. Mostly because when I was younger, I was averse to spooky stuff, scary movies and all that stuff. And based on the trailers that I'd seen for The Nightmare Before Christmas, I kind of didn't want to watch it. Mostly because, from my perspective, it seemed to be a story about monsters kidnapping Santa and taking over Christmas. And, yeah, on paper, that didn't exactly sound like a story that I myself wanted to watch. With that said, I was eventually exposed to the world of The Nightmare Before Christmas thanks to a little video game series called Kingdom Hearts, as one of the Disney movies that was featured for those games was The Nightmare Before Christmas. And so when I actually, visited the levels that were based on the movie and wound up interacting with the characters from those movies, I was actually charmed. I liked the characters. I expected to go in and expect everyone to be hostile, but I was pleasantly surprised to find that all the characters in the movies were very nice, very approachable, and actually made for some good company. And I began thinking to myself, is this what the movie is like? And, well, it made me a bit more curious about the Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, I still didn't go sit down and watch the movie, but that was mostly because, well, I just didn't have access to it. While it was on TV on occasion, I never really got the chance to sit down and watch it. If I did pop in, it would be like maybe halfway through the movie or 2/3 of the way through the movie, or maybe I would pop in at maybe I would pop in when I just missed the beginning. My point is, I never really sat down and watched the movie in full. And the first time that I tried, it was sadly with a buggy copy of the movie. And as a result, it did kind of glitch out when it started getting to the third act, and I still had to miss a little chunk of the movie. So, again, it was not exactly... So, again, it was a while before I sat down and watched it. In fact, the first time I finally watched this movie in full was last year around Christmas, as at the time when I was putting up the Christmas tree, I decided to pop it in and actually see what the big deal is with it, and I can pleasantly say that I did enjoy myself. But, and this is a dummy thick but, I did notice a few things that did make me kind of scratch my head a little. That doesn't mean it ruined it, like at all. But with that said, but let me put it this way. This film had been hyped up to hell before I had seen it, and let's just say that when I finally gave this film a shot, I was a little surprised by a few things. Does that mean it's bad? No. But with that said, it is something that does make me a little bit... It does make me curious about how I'll be able to, actually talk about it and actually showcase my thoughts on it. And so, I find that doing these vlogs is a bit of a pleasant surprise. Now, I was always going to look at the movie for these vlogs anyway, as I put up that poll for this year's vlog long before I sat down and watched it. But the thing is this film worthy of all the acclaim that it really gets? Or is there something in there that people just tend to look over? Well, let's talk about it and find out. As today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking a look at The Nightmare Before Christmas. And the film really starts strong as we get an opening, the film opens in a forest in a grove of trees. And basically, this grove of trees... they're a mystical persuasion, as each tree in this grove has a door on it that represents a different holiday: St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Thanksgiving, and so on. And as the film gets going, we get a little narration talking about the worlds of holidays, where they come from, and how it's time we see it for ourselves and all that stuff. It has a nice storybook feel to it as we go to the door that represents Halloween and just go straight in. And the film opens with probably this movie's most famous song, "This Is Halloween," as we enter into the world of Halloween, represented by a town called, well, Halloween Town, as we see the denizens of Halloween Town singing about how much they love Halloween and how great of a holiday it is, as they begin describing what they are. And yes, for a town that's based on Halloween, The entire town is filled with monsters who take a thrill every year in scaring the bejesus out of as many people as they can. With that said, none of them are bad people. No. While these monsters want to scare the pants off of you, at the end of the day, they don't mean to do you any real harm. If anything, the whole reason they want to scare the pants off of you is because well, life's no fun without a little thrill. So they like to give you that little scare to get you jumping and get your heart pounding and all that stuff. It's actually pretty nice and endearing. But at the center of Halloween Town is the king of Halloween himself, Jack Skellington, a spindly skeleton man in a sharp black suit who basically is the epitome of the season. And every year, he and the denizens of Halloween Town try their damnedest to deliver a perfect Halloween and make sure that everyone who celebrates gets a thrill and a scare beyond their wildest dreams. And this year is no different, as when the song dies down, Jack thanks everyone and says that this is probably their best year yet, as everyone continues praising him, celebrating before the mayor of Halloween Town starts handing out prizes for everyone for, doing their best. However, as everybody gets distracted, Jack wanders away from the crowd, and the instant he's out of eyesight, he just kind of slumps over and walks away. Why? Because he's tired. The thing is, Jack Skellington is the face of Halloween. It's his holiday, and year after year he has found new and impressive ways to try and make everyone scared, to raise the stakes and make every Halloween better than the last. And it's getting old for the guy. He has done this year after year for so long that it's beginning to become repetitive, and sadly, because of his position as the King of Nightmares, he just kind of feels trapped in his position, which he begins demonstrating as we get a song called Jack's Lament, as he wanders into a graveyard and talks about all these amazing things that he can do, and yet he feels like something is missing. However, as he sings this song, it turns out that the good Mr. Skellington is not alone, as there was someone in the graveyard at the time, a young woman by the name of Sally, a patchwork Frankenstein monster created by a scientist in Halloween Town called Dr. Finkelstein, who, let's just say he's a very bad boss, as in order to even go outside and live a life, Sally has to drug the good doctor any chance that she can get. And unfortunately, unfortunately for her, hold on one second. Sorry, was briefly distracted. But yeah, like I said, let me put it this way. Dr. Finkelstein is very possessive of what he considers his property. And well, as I mentioned, Sally's a Frankenstein monster, and who put her together? Dr. Finkelstein, of course. And as a result, while Sally is feeling adventurous and wants to see the world, Dr. Finkelstein wants to keep her cooped up in the lab because he needs an assistant, and well, she's no good to him if she's wandered off. So, like I said, at every opportunity, Sally has to try and drug the doctor just to keep him from stopping her, and let's just say that it happens quite a few times in the movie. As such, she's here right now because she had to run because she ran away from the doctor, and she ends up hearing Jack's song about how he feels trapped by his duties, and considering that Sally is saddled with Dr. Finkelstein, she can relate something fierce and begins feeling a kinship to Jack, though it's a bit of a one-sided relationship because while Sally is a very sweet girl and can be a bit of a trickster, she's also a very shy girl, and as a result, she doesn't really have it in her to go and talk to Jack and, begin expressing these feelings. As such, she ends up leaving the graveyard and leaves Jack on his lonesome, and sadly, she has to go back to Dr. Finkelstein, because after her latest attempt at drugging the doctor wore off, he tried to pull her back to the lab, and to get away, she had to literally lose an arm. And, well, he still has the arm, so she kind of needs to go back to get it. In the meantime, with Jack, he ends up wandering into a nearby forest, and he has some company. As while he was wandering through the graveyard, he wound up calling his trusty dog Zero, a ghost dog with a glowing nose that's He's a good pupper. He's just a good pupper, and he just wants to spend time and hang out with Jack. However, as Jack continues wandering the forest, he continues trying to ponder what he's missing, what he needs to really give him that spice back. And well, he continues doing this all through the night, as eventually the sun rises, and Halloween Town Sun is a giant jack-o'-lantern. I kind of love that. And eventually, Jack finds that he's wandered into a grove of trees. Which grove? The very same one that we saw at the beginning of the movie. Albeit this grove of trees is lacking the door leading to Halloween Town, which makes sense. We're already in Halloween Town. And considering the idea that all these doors lead to different universes based on the holidays that we know, then it would make sense that every world probably has their own grove of trees with this exact same set of doors, and odds are they wouldn't have a door that leads to themselves. It'd be like if having a door that leads back into your own room. It really kind of defeats the purpose. Either way, when Jack finds the doors, he's a bit surprised by them, and he actually is curious because he's never seen these before. And as such, as he looks over the doors, he eventually finds the door that is supposed to represent Christmas, which in this case looks like a Christmas tree. He opens it up, and while at first he doesn't step through, a breeze ends up knocking him off balance, and he ends up falling back into the door as he enters into the world of Christmas Town. And upon arriving in Christmas Town, Jack is just awestruck by everything, which also leads to the next song in the movie, What's This? As Jack just pounces around Christmas Town, just admiring and taking in all the beautiful sights and sounds that are just so alien to him, and he's loving every second of it. He doesn't fully understand it, but it brings him so much joy just to see everything, see all these people just going around celebrating Christmas, putting up lights, hanging mistletoe, baking treats, ice skating. It just makes him so happy. And while there's a part of him that's clearly confused by it, at the same time, he sees all this joyous attire, and he's like, I want to know more about this. And as such, he kind of spends a good chunk of the day just exploring Christmas Town, much to the detriment of the Halloween Town denizens, because they begin wondering where the hell he is. Mostly because the town's two-faced mayor, I'm not kidding, he's literally two-faced, it switches whenever his mood changes, is trying to find Jack because he kind of needs his help for planning for next year's Halloween. Thankfully, Jack does eventually come back, and the townsfolk who have been spending all of the day looking for Jack are just happy to see him. As such, Jack tells them that he'll tell them everything about where he was, but the mayor has to call a town meeting right now. As such, all of the denizens of Halloween Town gather in a great hall as we get what is basically the town meeting song. I'm not even kidding, that's what it's called. As Jack begins telling the denizens of Halloween Town about his discovery of Christmas Town, as he begins explaining what a Christmas tree is, what presents are, about the lights, etc. But the problem is that none of the Halloween Town denizens really get it, so to speak. After all, these guys have dedicated their lives to Halloween, a holiday about spooks and creeps and scares and all that stuff. And so, to be told about a holiday that kind of represents the opposite of that, about joy and light and sweetness and kinship with your fellow man, they don't fully get it. And so, as Jack continues explaining everything about Christmas to them, they're just all like, wait, shouldn't it be doing this or shouldn't it be doing that? Just kind of trying to find ways of making it fit in their brains, but not really fully understanding it, which does irritate Jack. And so to try and appease the denizens of Halloween Town, he tells them about the proprietor of Christmas Town, just as Jack is the face of Halloween, he was made aware of the face of Christmas, which of course is St. Nicholas himself, Santa Claus. And so he tells Halloween Town about Mr. Claus, or as he calls him, Sandy Claus. It's kind of amusing, and it shows that, and it's a nice way of perfectly showcasing that despite Jack's new fascination with Christmas, he also doesn't fully understand it either. He's got a better grasp of it than everyone else, but that's because he's got first-hand experience, and, well, he's never celebrated the holiday, so it's still foreign to him. Either way, telling the denizens of Halloween Town about Sandy Claus does seem to appease them enough, and Jack ends the meeting, but he still laments that they just don't get it, so to speak, but he's at least happy that he got them excited for the holiday. In the meantime, Jack kind of coops himself up in his house for, I'm guessing, a few days, as he essentially tries to figure out how to do Christmas. He tries understanding the ins and outs of it, but regardless of how much he reads, all the stories he looks up, it's hard, he can't really get it, and it's really gnawing at him. As such, to try and better understand it, he ends up going to Dr. Finkelstein's lab and asks Dr. Finkelstein if he can borrow some of his equipment, because he believes that if he can actually study Christmas, that he can finally get to the heart of it and figure out what makes the holiday tick. However, Sally ends up overhearing Jack talking about this, as Sally was locked in a room after her latest attempt at drugging the doctor, and Sally begins getting a little bit worried. As such, Jack gets the equipment he needs and goes back to his home, and he just proceeds to begin testing all of these various things around these various Christmas paraphernalia to try and figure out what makes them tick. And unfortunately, he isn't really getting anywhere. Though it also leads to a funny scene where he tries to make one of those paper. Hold on one second, I'm blanking on the word. Sorry. He tries making a paper snowflake, and then to even his own amazement, he makes it look like a spider. But as he continues disassembling toys, testing out the material for candy canes and light bulbs and other ornaments, he's still not getting it, and it's irritating him. However, Sally manages to break out of her confinement, and, well, she brings Jack a present as she goes to his house and ends up sending him up a bottle of, I'm just going to assume, booze. Yeah, they don't say it's booze, but it looks like her own personal batch of booze that she made for him, which Jack is, of course, happy with, but when he goes to thank Sally, she's just gone, as, well, she was out, as she didn't really go to Jack and give it to him, she just went to his house and then just used a pulley system to send it to his window. As such, Jack is a little surprised by this, but Sally's at least happy that she did something nice for him, but as she sits outside his house, she ends up picking a flower. And let's just say the flower becomes an omen for her, as the flower suddenly shifts to look like a Christmas tree that ends up going up in flames, much to her shock. Sally interprets this as a vision of what's to come, and what's to come is that Jack's obsession with Christmas is not going to end well. As such, night turns to day as Jack continues obsessing over Christmas, which of course leads to the next song, Jack's Obsession, as Jack is just kind of racking his brain trying to figure out the ins and outs of Christmas. And through it all, it's just frustrating him that he's still not getting it. And yet his fascination with Christmas still hasn't gone. If anything, the more he tries to understand it, the more he's enraptured by it. Even if he doesn't get it, he still wants to keep trying. And he eventually gets to the point where maybe Christmas isn't as complex as I think it is. Maybe it is something. Maybe it really is just what you see. Maybe it is just what you see. And he starts thinking, well, maybe anybody could do this thing. Not just anybody, but maybe I could do it. And suddenly Jack thinks he's found the answer to his prayers as he thinks that if Santa Claus can do Christmas every year, then why can't Jack try it out for a change? As such, as Jack hits his revelation, he announces to Halloween Town that this year they're gonna handle Christmas too, which everyone in Halloween Town claps for, as they're just happy to see Jack enthralled again. The only one, however, who isn't excited about this is Sally, as her little vision has let her know that things aren't gonna go so well. As such, the denizens of Halloween Town began grouping all their efforts together as they start preparing to celebrate Christmas their way. And, as I mentioned, since the town does not understand a lick about the holiday, well, let's just say that their attempts of getting into the jolly mood aren't exactly successful, as they're put in charge of making toys, ornaments, and presents, all that crap, but it's with a Halloween-y flair. The toys look threatening. The decorations they put up all will attack you. It basically just looks like a nightmare. Although, in a way, you do kind of get a bit of their enthusiasm while you're a little freaked out about what they're making, because they just seem to be all in on it. However, if Jack really wants to take over for Christmas, then there are two things that he needs to do. One, he needs to look the part, and that's where Sally comes in, as Jack personally goes up to Sally and asks her to make him a Santa suit, which she does, though she does try to warn Jack that things might not be going the way he wants them to. Unfortunately, Jack's not listening to her because he's just so laser-focused on taking over Christmas that he's not really seeing anything else. As such, while Sally reluctantly goes off to make him his outfit, that's where the second thing that Jack needs comes into play. And here's where we meet three kids that call Halloween Town their home: Lock, Shock, and Barrel. Three kids that dress up as a devil, a witch, and a skeleton, respectively, who, in Jack's words, are Halloween Town's best trick-or-treaters. And Jack needs them for one specific purpose, because after all, if Jack's going to be playing the role of Santa, then that means the genuine article has got to go for a while. And as such, he charges the trio of kids to essentially kidnap the Fat Man. And the kids decide that they'll do it, but Jack gives them one warning, that if they're going to do this, then they cannot include someone by the name of Oogie Boogie, which the kids promise they won't do, with their fingers crossed behind their backs. As such, it leads to the next song in the movie, Kidnapping Sandy Claus, as the trio begins singing about all the ways that they could kidnap Santa and basically just trap him and just keep him trapped. And it's during this song that we see them go back to a manor, so to speak, and as they sing about kidnapping Santa, they talk about how once they're done with him, they're going to hand him over to the aforementioned Oogie Boogie. And it's here where we get a taste of who this character is, as we see the trio essentially marinating a spider for him and then throwing it down a chute where we see Oogie's lair. And we don't actually see Oogie Boogie in full, but we do see him in silhouette, as we see him prancing about, hearing the kids sing, and then just immediately engulfing the spider before sending its cage back up. As such, after Lock, Shock, and Barrel get all prepared and get into a walking tub, because this is still a Tim Burton movie, they end up leaving to go kidnap the Jolly Fat Man, while Oogie Boogie is a little intrigued by what he heard them talking about. In the meantime, a month pretty much passes in universe as the Halloween Town continues setting up for Christmas. Sally continues making Jack's outfit, and well, the trio of trick-or-treaters do try to grab Santa, and end up accidentally grabbing the Easter Bunny. It's actually kind of funny. It results in Jack chewing them out, telling them to send the Easter Bunny home and get the genuine article. It's, again, really funny. But either way, eventually Christmas Eve comes, as both Halloween Town and Christmas Town are getting fully into celebrating the season. And as such, we cut to Christmas Town as we see Mrs. Claus bringing her husband some milk and cookies as he's going over his list and seeing which kids have been naughty and which have been nice, with most kids being nice that year. However, Santa gets a ring at his doorbell, and when he goes to check and see who it is, he finds Lock, Shock, and Barrel there saying trick or treat before they throw the Fat Man in a sack and bring him back to Halloween Town. As such, back at Halloween Town, Jack has gotten himself in the Santa suit that Sally has made for him, and while Sally is still pleading with Jack not to do this, again, Jack is so laser-focused that he's just kind of ignoring her warnings. And it's made even worse when he hears Lock, Shock, and Barrel come into town with the real Santa. And of course, Santa does not know what the hell is going on. And once he actually sees where he is, and he sees himself surrounded by all these monsters, and the spindly skeleton man comes up to him saying, "Oh, Santa, it's an honor to meet you," it doesn't really assuage his fears, not helped by the fact that Jack Skellington tells him that he can take a vacation this year, that he'll handle this now, which Santa's even less for because he's fucking Santa Claus. He wants to kind of do his job, is what I'm saying. However, before Jack sends Santa off, he ends up taking his hat because, well, Sally didn't make Jack a Santa hat, and he kind of needs it to complete the ensemble. As such, he tells Lock, Shock, and Barrel to take Santa somewhere and make him comfortable, and so, much to the good Mr. Claus's protest, he's taken away, and Lock, Shock, and Barrel decide that if they want to really put Santa away, well, there's at least the safest place in Halloween Town is with Mr. Oogie Boogie. And as a result, they take the aforementioned Mr. Nicholas back to their little mansion, and then shove him down the tube to Oogie's lair. And it's here where we meet the only denizen of Halloween Town who means few genuine harm, Mr. Oogie Boogie, portrayed by the late Ken Page, which, yeah, I probably should bring this up now, because if I don't, someone else will. Not long before I did this video, Ken Page sadly passed away. He was a very talented actor, and he portrayed Oogie Boogie in pretty much every one of his appearances across media in Disney. It's sad to see him pass away, and if I can say really anything to his memory, I'm just happy that he'll always find a way to be lived on, both in this movie and the other media he portrayed. Mr. Page, I hope you rest in peace. So, with that out of the way, yeah, Oogie Boogie's not a fun customer, as he is quite literally a giant bag of bugs. And, like I said, while the other denizens of Halloween Town will scare you, they don't mean you any harm. This guy likes playing with people's lives like they're poker chips in a dice game. And yeah, that's rather appropriate as we get to the next song in the song called Oogie Song, which actually hold on, give me 1 second. Yeah, it was Oogie Boogie's song. And it's basically just Oogie Boogie showcasing just how much of a player he really is, as he just takes joy in having someone to torment, while also kind of laughing at the fact that this is Santa at all. He heard about this guy from everybody else, and he's like, wait, really? This is the guy that everyone was talking about? He's an ancient old man. Why is he such a big deal? Which he finds even funnier when Santa pleads for him to let him go because the children are expecting him, and Oogie just laughs in his face some more and tells the good Mr. Claus that he ain't going nowhere. In the meantime, back with Halloween Town, we see that Jack has gotten all prepared to head out for Christmas, as he commissioned Dr. Finkelstein to make him his own sleigh and reindeer, with the reindeer being skeletons because, again, Halloween. And Sally, well, in an attempt to try and stop Jack, she made a concoction that, when poured into the town fountain, would cause the entire area to be filled up with mist. At best, this is just an inconvenience, because, like I said, Jack has Zero, and Zero's nose glows. As such, Zero becomes Jack's makeshift Rudolph, and he ends up bleeding the reindeer as Jack goes off to take Santa's place that Christmas. And, yeah, let's just say that things just go horribly wrong. Well, they do from the perspective of everyone celebrating Christmas, as Jack goes from house to house delivering Halloween Town's sense of Christmas cheer, which in turn just scares the living piss out of everyone it comes across. He gives a kid who wanted a puppy a severed head. He puts up a wreath out in an old woman's home that comes to life and seems to attack her. She gives 2 kids a toy duck and doll that come to life and attack them. Though you could argue maybe that they want to play with the kids. I don't know. I'm making excuses right there. Point is, everything's going to hell, and Jack is just hearing all their screams and shrills and cries for help as them celebrating his merriment, that he's doing such a good job and they're all so happy and they want to thank him, when in reality things are even further from the truth. And apparently with all the presents that Jack is leaving for these people, well, people are calling the cops as they keep calling about what Jack is doing to the local police, and news reports start going out about Jack Skellington going around the world just delivering his cheer. As such, as things are going on, the denizens of Halloween Town are overhearing everything due to a witch's brew, which allows them to peek in on the broadcast. And while everyone in Halloween Town is celebrating, Sally is getting more worried, made worse by the fact when she hears the news broadcast about Jack being hunted by the fucking military now. Yeah, he really ought to fuck up bad to get that. As such, Sally realizes that things are getting out of hand and that they need to fix this, which means that she kind of needs to get some help. As such, she scours Halloween Town looking for Santa Claus, and well, she finds him in Oogie's lair as he continues talking about celebrating how he's going to make Santa suffer. As such, realizing the good Mr. Nicholas's peril, Sally ends up distracting Oogie Boogie by taking off her leg and distracting him with it, because apparently even a bag of bugs can get pretty horny for her legs. And while he's distracted, Sally manages to slip her hands in through a window, untie Santa, and then send a ladder down with the intent of getting him out. Unfortunately, when Oogie starts, touching Sally's leg, he realizes, hey, this is a dismembered leg. There's no actual lady attached to this thing, and quickly turns around to see Santa trying to make a getaway. As such, realizing he's been had, he ends up capturing both Santa and Sally, and, well, things aren't really faring better for Jack, as the military is making good on their threats and is trying to shoot Jack right out of the sky. And while at first Jack thinks that they're all actually celebrating, and that they're almost accidentally hitting him, well, it takes his one stray missile hitting one of his reindeer, and Jack realizes, oh, shit, they really do want to kill us. And unfortunately, they succeed, as a missile ends up hitting Jack's sleigh, and he and his reindeer are knocked out of the sky. As such, things aren't exactly going well in both the human world and Halloween Town. As from the perspective of the denizens of Halloween Town, it looks like Jack was actually killed for realsies. And as a result, everyone's now at a loss since, well, he was their leader and they don't know what to do without him. And meanwhile, back in the human world, while the police say that they've managed to knock down the imposter Santa, the real deal is still nowhere to be seen, so Christmas might be canceled this year. Whatever, I'm sorry. But either way, in reality though, Jack's fine. Yeah, he's a little bit singed, but otherwise he's in one piece, though his Santa suit is sadly in tatters. And, well, we see Jack as he's in a cemetery, as we get to the next song in the movie called Poor Jack, as Jack actually does lament that he didn't really want things to go this badly. He didn't, after all, he just wanted to bring something new to the table. He just wanted to experience something swell, and yet, despite his efforts, everything has gone to hell. And yet, through all this, Jack begins realizing something. Yeah, he failed hard, but at least he tried his best, and despite everything not going the way he wanted to, he still felt that thrill that he'd been wanting for years. And he felt reinvigorated. He felt amazing, and he realizes that this may not have been what he wanted to do, but it still reignites something in him, and it makes Jack finally realize just who he is. He's the Pumpkin King. He's Jack Skellington, and he can't wait he can't wait for next Halloween because doing all this has given him brand new ideas that he can't wait to try out. Unfortunately, though, despite Jack's newfound lease on life, Christmas is still kind of going to hell, and he realizes that if he wants to fix this, he needs to get Santa Claus back in his job. As such, he takes Santa's hat and, I guess, using a gateway in the cemetery, which I guess kind of makes sense, he ends up making his way back to Halloween Town and begins scouring the place looking for Santa. Unfortunately, though, Oogie has Sally and Santa on a slab and is playing a game of dice with them to figure out how many times he'll basically move the tables before Sally and Santa get dipped in boiling lava. As such, he almost dunks them in, but thankfully Jack ends up hearing Sally's call for help, and so he manages to race to Oogie's manor just in time before Oogie can dip the pair in lava. And as such, he manages to basically get the drop on Oogie, much to the Bagabug's shock, but Oogie is not really going to back down. After all, he's on a roll here, and he is not going to let someone like Jack Skellington get in his way. As such, Oogie just immediately goes all out as he converts his chamber into his ultimate game board as playing cards rise up out of nowhere, point swords at Jack. He's got toy soldiers that have guns ready and are trying to shoot Jack down, but Jack is able to maneuver around them all rather quickly. And in the case of Oogie, he's actually getting closer to Jack because it's a turning table, and Jack's found a way to stay in place while Oogie's getting closer. In a last-ditch effort to get Jack off his back, Oogie ends up sticking a buzzsaw on him, but when Oogie hit the buzzsaw, one of the threads on his bag came loose. And so, while the buzzsaw didn't do anything to Jack, it did give Oogie enough time to get away as he tries getting on top of a claw and rising up to the ceiling. However, Jack manages to grab Oogie's loose thread, and he pulls hard, which in turn causes the seam on Oogie's body to completely come undone, and, it exposes all the bugs underneath, much to Oogie's horror. And without the bag keeping them all in place, all the bugs start just falling apart, many of which start falling into the lava that the good Mr. Boogie was going to dip Santa and Sally in. And as a result, just bit by bit, you hear Oogie crying in agony as he burns up in the lava until all that's left of him is like a single caterpillar, which Jack ends up crushing beneath his boot. As such, Oogie Boogie is defeated, and Santa and Sally are safe. As such, Jack goes over to Santa and gives him his hat back, apologizing for what he's done, and Santa is justifiably kind of pissed off for Jack with everything he's done, and Jack sincerely asks Santa if he can fix everything, and Santa says, yeah, he can. He's Santa Claus after all. And so, with a little tap of his nose, Santa flies out the chimney as he goes around the world, basically undoing all the damage that Jack Skellington has done and making Christmas a merry one again. In the meantime, Jack and Sally now alone, get a chance to finally talk, and Jack asks Sally why she was here at all. And Sally admits that she was looking for Santa because she was worried about Jack. She wanted to help him. And when Jack hears this, he finally sees that Sally has feelings for him, but before he can reciprocate said feelings, they get interrupted, as it turns out that Lock, Shock, and Barrel, because they're kind of little two-faced brats, wound up getting the mayor of Halloweentown and told them, yeah, Jack's at Oogie's Manor, and so they managed to go in and sit and get Jack and Sally out of there. As such, Jack and Co. managed to make their way back to Halloweentown, with everyone in Halloweentown happy that Jack is in one piece and alive, but as they're all celebrating his return, they hear a bit of jingling in the air, and as they look to the sky, they see Santa flying by, wishing everyone a happy Halloween, as he is making snow come down in Halloweentown, which finally allows the denizens of Halloweentown to at least get a true taste of Christmas, as they see the snow and are think, what's this? What is this stuff? And they, of course, chalk it up to a Christmas thing, but they do start having fun in the snow, as they begin ice skating, making snow angels, and even having snowball fights. It's actually pretty nice and cheery. But through all this, Jack begins looking for Sally, and through all the hubbub, she managed to make her way to the cemetery again, where Jack meets up with her, and the film ends as the two of them sing together and reciprocate their feelings as they hold each other close and kiss. It's nice, and I dig it. So, yeah, that was The Nightmare Before Christmas, and what are my thoughts on it? As a film, I can honestly say it's all right. Yeah, I get the feeling that there's going to be plenty of people out there who are going to be breathing down my neck with that statement, but I want to make something perfectly clear. This is not a bad movie at all. In fact, it is a good movie. It is, and I can understand why it has gained the cult status that it has over the years. Because, well, it's a very creative movie. The thing is, Tim Burton's name on this film is not just there so that you can have a brand name. No, his fingerprints are all over this movie, and it shows. From the very first time you see Halloweentown, you can just see how creative this world is. The unique designs on all the citizens, how the sets look, even fucking Christmas Town. It's all just so unique and varied and interesting, and it all just has that weird, zany Tim Burton flair that only he can produce. And I think it works. And likewise, throughout the entire movie, while the entire idea of it is basically the denizens of Halloween hijacking Christmas, there's a real charm to everything, if that makes any sense. The thing is, while Jack and the denizens of Halloweentown are essentially stealing this holiday that is in every way their polar opposite, they're so happy about stealing it. Not because they want to, ruin Christmas or anything, or because they see, oh, this thing is just so light and cheery, we gotta tear it down. No. They don't understand Christmas, but they want to try and understand it. And in a way, that enthusiasm is infectious. You see the denizens of Halloweentown putting their all into actually making a good Christmas, and it's actually really nice. Yeah, they're getting it wrong in many cases, but you really do feel for all of them. And it's let me put it this way. It's like a kid making a very bad drawing. You know it looks bad, but you can tell they put a lot of time and effort into it, and you can't say no, and you can't tell them that. It would just break their hearts. And it's a similar case with the denizens of Halloweentown. They're putting their all into this thing they don't understand, and even the person that's guiding them only knows so much about it, and yet, at the same time, you can still admire the creativity and passion they're putting into it, and it makes them honestly very likable, which kind of also extends to the main cast. Jack Skellington could very easily have come across as a selfish, whiny twit when it came down to this, as ultimately it's his selfishness that kind of drives the plot forward, as he feels dissatisfied with Halloween, so when he discovers Christmas, he wants to essentially hijack it so he can get that thrill back. But, like with the denizens of Halloweentown, who are getting into Christmas despite not understanding it, Jack really does not mean any harm throughout all this. In fact, in the What's This song, when he first enters Christmas Town, you can just see him amazed by everything, and when he sees all the concepts surrounding Christmas, he's confused by it, but he's also enraptured by it. When he sees two elves standing under a mistletoe and kissing, he's like, oh, that's so inspired. I didn't even think of that. It's like the idea of Christmas and everything surrounding it it intrigues him. It makes him happy. And yeah, his interest with Christmas just becomes a full-on obsession. But you can't really berate him for wanting to get into it because he really does not mean any harm. He's basically just a big kid with a brand new toy, and he's just trying to figure out how it works. And yeah, he goes overboard by the end, but you still really feel for him, and like I said, he's just a genuinely charming and nice guy. He's just so excitable and passionate about everything that he does that you kind of just get pulled into it with him. And then even by the end, when he realizes he fucked up and wants to do everything right, you're there with him all the way, and you're honestly very happy to see him get his lust for life back after he fails, because yeah, he screwed up. He knows he screwed up, but at least he had a damn good time screwing up, and that's all that matters. So I kind of like that. It really works. And then there's Sally as a main character. While I admit that the romance between her and Jack isn't fully developed, it's still damn adorable. It's just basically puppy love, if that makes any sense. Sally is like I said, Sally is a very shy individual and thus never goes to confront Jack head on with her feelings. But you can tell that her feelings are genuine throughout the movie, as she always watches Jack from a distance, hears his woes and understands them, and even tries just doing little things for him to try and help him out, from giving him that bottle of booze that she made to making the outfit. And in fact, when she realized that things were going to hell for Jack, she wanted to put her best foot forward, no pun intended, and actually help and try and get him out of this situation by freeing the real Santa Claus. And when Jack realized that she went into all that effort just for him, it makes him realize that there were things that he was missing out on, which I kind of like. It's another little way of showcasing Jack's growth too, as once he's out of his tunnel vision regarding Christmas, it allows him to see things that he didn't notice before, i.e. that Dr. Finkelstein's former assistant has a crush on him. And yes, I did say former assistant. Over the course of the movie, Dr. Finkelstein kind of got sick and tired of Sally sneaking out of his lab, and he decided to just make a new assistant who was pretty much just his double. I wish I was kidding. But with that said, there's one other aspect that really does work is Oogie fucking Boogie. Despite the fact that Oogie Boogie doesn't really show up in this film until the third act, he steals the show. I wouldn't say he's like the primary antagonistic force, because ultimately it's Jack that kind of becomes that force. As like I said, Jack's whole plan. The thing is, Jack's plan was clearly doomed from the start, because Halloween Town and Christmas Town ideologically are two diametrically opposed forces. One's about making you shiver and shake in the dark, and the other's about bringing light and joy to the world. Both have their appeals, but when you try meshing them together, it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work well. Well, sort of. Depends on who you ask. But by their very foundations, they do not belong together. And as a result, Jack is kind of like I want to say a villain protagonist. I put villain in air quotes because, again, I wouldn't really call him a bad guy. After all, by the end, he does learn his lesson, realizes he's screwed up, and then wants to put everything back together. But with that said, Oogie Boogie does work as what you could consider a secondary villain, if not just the primary bad guy altogether. As even before we actually see him, we get a sense of how intimidating this guy is, as we see Lock, Shock, and Barrel singing about sending Santa right to him, and the first time we see Oogie Boogie is him just laughing maniacally before he almost sounds intrigued by the thought of a Sandy Claus, and when he actually meets the big red cheese, he just has a laugh at how ridiculous he sees him. It's actually pretty. It's a very good performance. The late Ken Page really knocked it out of the park with him, and it's really nice and again, like I said, he did the role perfectly in every one of his appearances, which also does make it hurt a little bit more knowing that he's not around anymore. But the legacy he left is still intact, because Oogie Boogie, he's a charmer, and his song, Oogie Boogie's song, is a damn good villain song. Very jazzy and very swinging, and really exemplifies just how much of a maniac Oogie Boogie is compared to the other denizens of Halloween Town. And on that same note, the music is amazing. All the songs for this movie are fantastic. Some of them will stick in your head more than others, but I cannot think of any song in this movie that I disliked. All of them had their charms to them and really conveyed a sense of what they were trying to do. This is Halloween was a perfect tone setter for the rest of the movie, introducing you to the world of Halloween Town and what its denizens are like, and really getting you into that Halloween spirit. This is a very curious and upbeat song as we see Jack just running around. And one song that I forgot to mention, Sally's song, is a very sweet and melodramatic song that's sung by Sally as she sings about how, despite her feelings for Jack, she feels that he'll never notice her. It's again sweet, and it's a nice sweet song that's kind of like a good parallel to the Jack's Lament song from earlier, but it's nice in its own regard. And hell, even the Poor Jack song is a really nice song that exemplifies Jack's woes at having failed at Christmas, but then the rise that he feels when he realizes that despite failing, he did still accomplish what he wanted to. He got his thrill back, and he's now excited. And yeah, he knows he probably can't do Christmas again, but at the very least, he's getting some brand new ideas for Halloween that he can't wait to try next year. So again, it's some really nice stuff. With that said, why do I still only think this film is alright? Well, that's because despite everything this film has going for it, it does kind of falter in one primary aspect. The story and the writing, sad to say. I'm not saying that either of them are bad. They're both competently done for what they are, but in a way, both are pretty simple, if that makes any sense. While Jack Skellington as a character is fun and enthusiastic and just an all-around good time, by that same token, he's, like I said, he is just sort of like a little kid in a candy store. The instant he discovers Christmas, he just wants to try, you see a charm in wanting to see him explore it, but there's nothing really too big or complex about what he's going through. It's just he wants to understand Halloween, and as a result, while I do like seeing him get his eventual flair back as he tries out Christmas and eventually fails, and then decides, well, maybe I'll just try better next year for Halloween. At the same time, the arc that he has doesn't really feel like he goes through any major changes aside from getting his spark back, which that's a good story arc. I'm not going to deny, but it's nothing really too complex either. And I'm not going to say that it has to be anything. I'm not saying that a story has to be complex in order to be good. A simple story can work on its own merits, and this movie does work in that regard. But by that same token, because it's so essentially, it feels just basic is what I'm saying. And sadly, the dialogue doesn't really do much in that regard either, as all really just feels straightforward in many regards. As there are some lines that do feel unnecessary and a little kind of weird. There are some things that don't really make a lot. There are some scenes that don't really go anywhere, like with Sally constantly drugging Dr. Finkelstein. It's again, like I said, when I was doing a plot summary, I only mentioned it like once, because when it comes down to it, that's kind of small potatoes and everything. It's the driving force for Sally's character, I won't deny, as like I said, because of her imprisonment as Dr. Finkelstein's assistant, she can relate to Jack, and that's what helps her develop the feeling she has for him. But by that same token, they do kind of feel a bit of they do feel unnecessary. Same goes for Dr. Finkelstein making his new assistant. It just feels lesser, if that makes any sense. And as a result, there are plenty of scenes and there are plenty of moments in dialogue that do feel pretty simple and basic for everything. It does, in a way, it does kind of feel like a kiddie movie. I'm not saying that to discount the movie or lessen it in any regard, because again, you can still have a very creative and very damn good kids movie. There are plenty that I've hopefully there are plenty out there that you can find, and I'm sure that anyone watching this video could probably think of one off the top of their head without any effort. Because there are some really damn good kids movies out there. It's just that this one doesn't really feel like it's anything too big. The whole plot, hell, the whole thing with them, with them saying Christmas is canceled because we can't find the real Santa, I just kind of rolled my eyes at. And them apparently even realizing that Santa's a real thing in this world. Okay. Why is that? Why do they not know that Jack Skellington's a thing? I understand that Jack Skellington was not a big well-known name before this movie existed, but if Santa Claus is the face of Christmas, and Jack Skellington's the face of Halloween, then shouldn't he have some acclaim? I don't know. It just feels a little strange, is what I'm saying. saying. And kind of going off of that, well, Oogie Boogie is considered the big bad. Well, is considered the big bad. Again, he's not really until he's mentioned by Lock, Shock, and Barrel in their song, he doesn't really have a presence in the movie. It still does a good job of setting him up, but at the end of the day, but likewise, until then, the driving force is just Jack, and Oogie Boogie only becomes a primary threat when he gets his baggy little hands on Santa Claus. So again, it's just sort of iffy in that regard. But with all that said, these things do not ruin the movie. And I know that there are going to be people out there who will disagree with me, and you know what? That's fair. That's totally fair. And because at the end of the day, I do understand why this movie is a cult classic, and I like it. I genuinely like it. Like I said, it is such a creative movie. Despite while I think the writing can be a little too simple at times, I think the characters are all really well done. I like Jack as a character, as he's just so full of enthusiasm and life that you can't help but like him. I like Sally's little one-sided romance with him, as I think it's really cute, especially when Jack learns that she has feelings for him and reciprocates. Oogie Boogie is a great villain, even if he was only in the third act. The songs are all fantastic, and likewise the designs of this world are so damn creative. The designs of the monsters, the designs of the towns, the designs for the elves, all of it is just so weird and otherworldly, but so charming and fun in its own right. Hell, going back to the mayor, I love how this guy is just such an incompetent boob. He can't do anything without Jack, and if Jack says that something's okay, he's all for it. And he only ever says that maybe going with Christmas was a bad idea when Jack gets shot out of the sky, as he says, "Oh, I knew this was a bad idea," even though earlier in the movie he said, "Oh, I'm all for this, Jack." Like, the guy is just a moron. And yes, I love that again, he's the two-faced politician. It's kind of funny and a nice little bit of political satire without it being too in your face. Again, good stuff. So in that regard, while I wouldn't say this film is like amazing or spectacular, I do understand why it's still well remembered and well loved even years later. And I suspect that it's going to continue being remembered and loved for many more years to come because, like I said, despite its flaws, it is still a very creative, very fun, very imaginative movie with great music, great set designs, great characters, and just overall, it's just a very great experience. As a film, it's all right, but as an experience, it's definitely one that I think that you should at least see for yourself at least once. It's definitely something that I think that's worth your time as either a Christmas or Halloween movie. And yeah, I heard people arguing whether this film could be considered a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie. I admit, there's good arguments to be had for both sides, but I'm one of those people that thinks it could be good for both, hence why I'm still keeping it for this year's Halloween vlog. So again, if you haven't seen the movie, I do highly recommend it. It's very much worth your time, and despite the flaws that I mentioned, I still think it's just a damn good movie all around, and still worthy of all the acclaim it gets. So yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hopefully didn't piss any of you off too much. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next Sunday as for our next stop-motion spooky. We're going to be seeing Tim Burton once again take the helm as we take a look at another film that is still remembered to this day, Corpse Bride.